All right, welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Rob Furman. Dr. Rob is an elementary school principal, author of 6 books, a TEDx speaker and keynote presenter, and a drummer in a rock band. Dr. Rob recently was awarded the Child Advocacy Honor by the Pennsylvania Association of Middle Level Education. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rob.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to a national group audience, and thank you for creating these type of experiences for kids. It's so important right now that we continue to create these community experiences. I just want to take a couple minutes to sort of talk about the silver linings to this experience. It can get very easy to become entrenched in the negativity and depression and the sadness of the whole thing. But I've always been a glass half full kind of guy, and I want to stay that way. So I've been thinking about the silver linings in this experience. I'm also a member of the World Future Society, and we talk about educational futurism and how we see things impacting in the long-term futures as well. When you think about public education, it was started in 1892 by the Committee of 10. And they only had 3 organizations to really draw ideas from: the church, the factory, and the jail cells. So when you look at public education, it's interesting because we still follow a lot of those traditions that were created all the way back then. The factory, the idea of standardization, the idea of one size fits all, the idea of a standard child coming in the front door and all going out looking identical the same way in the other end. You've got your jail, where procedures and classroom management. Where do you think we got recess? That's yard time, folks. Where do you think we got the yearbook? That's the mugshot, folks. So we get all these things from these older groupings. The church, that's where the idea of the lecture came through. That's the idea of where the pastor or whomever holds, they're the keeper of the knowledge. And if they give it to you, then you can learn it, but you can only get what they give you. And you have to be able to sit there quietly, take it, and learn it. There's no other means of disseminating that information. And if you look at the visual of it, and if you go to some church, what do you see? We're all in rows, sitting in front, and there's a person in front of us talking at us. Looks like a perfect classroom to me, right? So those things haven't changed. If there was any other organization that still looked the same 100-some years ago and still looks the same today, they'd be in trouble, right? But yet education still has so many of these factors. So that's why I say often, it's time for an educational revolution. And folks, I think we're there. I think through this pandemic crisis, we're going to see a beautiful blossoming of change in education. Just look at some of these silver linings that we're seeing from this experience. I'm an elementary principal, so I'm talking with parents kindergarten through 4th grade, but I also have a middle school child and I have a high school child. So I'm seeing the broad reach. Here's one silver lining that I find to be fairly interesting. Our students, when they return, I'm betting they're going to be more independent and more self-directed than we've ever had before, because they're at home now. I don't know about you, but I try to do 3rd and 4th grade math and some of that Common Core versions with all the little extra line. It's not easy because I never learned that way. So they're teaching me. The idea of, some parents have difficulty with the technology. Our kids are snapping. They're good at that stuff. So ultimately, they're becoming almost the teacher of the parent as opposed to the student. So we're going to see a lot more independence, a lot more self-directed learning, because they're having to do that now at home for large periods of time. We're also seeing kids who are all of a sudden becoming excellent time managers. My son said to me the other day, can I get some work done for tomorrow's classwork, because I want to be able to do something else tomorrow that's going to take up a little more time. Where'd that come from? Like, he wants to get stuff done in advance now, because they're starting to think time management. I gave him lunch. He sat at his Chromebook while he was doing his work and ate. Why? Because he didn't want to do both. He wanted to get the stuff done so he could have the rest of the day to himself. So all of a sudden, with us taking away the requirement of time management. They've actually become better at it than we probably could have ever asked them to be, which is amazing. And another one that's probably one of the most exciting for me to see is the amount of creativity that's coming out of this. All of a sudden, all the students, my kindergarten on up through my high schooler, they're doing TikToks. So they're doing dances, they're doing singing, they're doing video productions, they're doing all kinds of artwork. I had a kindergartner the other day through a couple parents get me a drum. I'm a drummer. Brought me a made drum that she made for me, and I played it on video and sent it back. But those are the type of things that and experiences that are just fascinating to me. I also find it fascinating that the kids are moving towards these creative experiences, because we know as educators so often that's probably one of the things that gets left behind due to all of our other restraints. The arts certainly have taken their hits over the years. I find it interesting that the kids are craving that now and seeking that out and are doing it on their own independently. There's something to be said there for the arts folks. So, in the end, there's a lot of amazing things that are going to come out of this. Teachers, get prepared, because I think when the students do return to our brick and mortar schools, we are going to see an amazing educational revolution, an amazing experience that we need to grasp, and we need to take it and we need to run with it. Because if we don't, we're losing a prime opportunity to reinvent the educational system for everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate all your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them my way.
I absolutely do. It's awesome to see your perspective, just because it gives me hope that this is happening at other elementary schools and other schools across the country, that we're all seeing this boost in creativity, in time management. I'm certainly seeing that with my own children and with my own students. Now, I do have a concern, and I'd like your take on it.
Sure.
I think that when you talk about your boy and how he's surprising you with things, I've seen the same things, but I'm also, we're fortunate to be working from home. Our kids are there. They have a lot of family support right now. And I'm afraid that we're going to see a divide with those who have a lot of support at home and they're thriving during this time. And then others that might not be in such a fortunate situation that are seeing a decline during this time. You have had more experience dealing with all sorts of students. What have you seen?
There are students who are unfortunately being lost in the shuffle a bit. We have a system here where we're tracking them and we're keeping an eye on them, doing everything we can to support them from a distance. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the virtual world, we're pushing to get them on different media platforms like Zoom, what we're using now, to try to keep that connection. They're the ones that are going to be our targets more so than the kids that already have the extra support at home. They're going to be the ones that we need to reach out to maybe daily to make sure that they're doing it. Help, just like you and I are doing right now, except right. It's a student and a teacher. They're the ones that you have to watch. The philosophies and the ideals of a teacher don't change all because of our current situation of being virtual. We still care about the kids. We still have to do what is right by each individual child, not as a classroom as a whole. We still have our counselors. We still have our nurses. So we're still trying to keep that all running. And those kids that do have less support at home, we're keeping a closer eye on them. When they come back, I think we're going to see some students that surprisingly, despite the lack of support at home, found their independence and found their interests and have been able to push through some of the bad things that are happening to keep themselves entertained and interested, mainly because there's nothing else to do. So I'm thinking that some of those kids who would go off and play all night long with their friends, now they're at home, they may not have anything else to do. So maybe they are going to get on and start looking at interests, start looking at the things that are different. That might be a little bit of wishful thinking, but I'm going to be, I bet that we're going to see some kids that left us one way are going to come back very different. And a lot of those are going to be for the good, mainly because of the isolation, because there is nothing else to do. They're going to find something to do. And it's going to be something that's going to be entertaining and interesting to them.
I agree.
Like classroom should be.
I think that one of the things that I've already seen come out of this, and I'd like to get your take on this as well, is I'm seeing more project-based learning, that kids are going home, they're deciding, not only is this an interest, but now I have something I can build, I have something I can develop, I have this new skill or this new talent. And these are things that are not just small one-day assignments, but these are like things that will change their life, that I really want to develop this interest. Are you seeing similar things where you're at?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you said that, because every other day on Facebook Live, I'm doing story time for my local community, and all my kids come on with their parents. And I've done different things. So, and I have a lot of interests, like my band, and I do a lot with music and things like that. And every time I do something different, like, for example, I pulled out some DJ equipment the other day, because I do that as well for fun. And the next day, I got a video from a parent of a kid who was trying to get into doing some of that kind of stuff, and was doing this long-term plan of how she was going to get decks and get the music and all that kind of stuff. And just like the other girl that I mentioned with the drum, I'm a drummer at one of my shows. I played the drums. The next day, she was building a drum for me, and she wanted to get drumsticks, and now she's banging on everything around the house. I'm sure the parents crazy, but so yeah, it's interesting, because they are taking on these bigger groupings of projects all on their own. And again, it's of their interest, which we talk about to teachers so often. Do something that's an interest to them, even if you're looking for a separate objective. You can blend in their interests, and the kids are doing it all on their own now, because they're becoming independent, self-directed learners now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a concern with that, just because I love what's happening. But I'm afraid we're going to come back, and they're going to have these awesome interests and this creativity, and that the institution of education is going to squash that, because we like our test scores, and we can't classify that. We can't grade it. We can say good for you, but now we need to do our math assignment. What do you think is going to happen with that? Are we going to lose those opportunities, or is the world going to change to where we can accommodate some of those interests and that self-directed learning?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some of these things that we're seeing now, we've been talking about for years. The need to become more project-based, the need to keep creativity alive. That's a digital age skill promoted by ISTE. The need to let them be self-directed learners and all those things. Now we're forced into it. So the kids are doing it on their own. It's going to be we're going to have an educational revolution. It's just a matter of who's going to win in the end. Is bureaucracy going to win in politics, or is the side of the students and the teachers and those of us that believe in this beautiful thing that we're seeing coming out of this tragedy? Which side's going to win? The powers that be are going to have to at some point accept the fact that they may not know what's best for the principals, teachers, and students down here, and let us do what we know is right by the kids. That's always the million-dollar question. You know what side I'm landing on.
Right.
You know what side I'm fighting for. So in my building, when they come back, I'm going to do everything I can to keep it alive and keep it going. Sometimes even despite the policies and bureaucracies that we have to deal with in education all the time. So if you're a politician out there and you're listening, get out of the way and let the kids do what they know they're doing, because they're doing it right all on their own. Obviously, if you could follow that, we're going to have a beautiful change in education.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. Now, moving from now into the summertime, I think this is going to be a really interesting time for us, because we are loosening up a little bit on the social distancing and what's expected. Of course, that's a state to state and even city to city situation. But never before have we gone into summer from an isolated period or whatever. I'm wondering if things are going to change dramatically because students don't have school to help them through the summer. Right now, they have a little bit of that framework and that organization so that they want to continue learning. They want to continue developing their skills. Do you think we're going to go to what typically happens over the summer, where we see huge declines in learning and forgetting math and not reading and not being as creative, where kids, default to video games and binge watching TV? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think we've already had enough good things happen through this pandemic that that's going to trickle over into the summer and then again into the fall?
I think what's going to happen is the students who have found an interest and have found an enjoyment in doing some of these more creative things will use that as their outlet for something to do in the summertime. I also think that we'll probably see a little bit of a decline, just like you always would. But with that being said, I also think that educators across the nation may really want to consider continuing some of these educational experiences and opportunities, not necessarily to the extent of the requirements of the law and all that kind of stuff, but teachers are going to be probably just as isolated and bored. So maybe we're not grading things, but why wouldn't we want to try to continue some of this pattern? Maybe loosen the reins a little bit, but nonetheless, we have never in the history of our lives been this isolated and this bored and this lack of anything to do, to put it a different way. So why don't we take this opportunity to continue some of the things that we're doing? Why don't we maybe come up with other projects that the kids can work on, maybe a little more long-term things where you don't check in every day necessarily, but still keeping the interests and things like that alive. Because I have a feeling summer's going to be harder for just that reason. What little structure we have created won't be there. So I think maybe we need to make less of a structure, but still keep a structure of some sort.
I think you're right. It's interesting. I've been making instructional videos for my students, and in particular, I've done a lot of math videos because I want to show them how to work out problems